If you were to describe 50 Cent, how would you describe him? Troll King, Petty King, the Hood Father? Whatever name you call him, you are right. But what if I was to tell you how he got rich and stays rich? You can learn how to as well. But why do you think he trolls? Is it because he is bored? Or is it a marketing strategy? He fears absolutely no one. And what's interesting is, he has used this strategy since the 90s. Where do you think he got it from? Hip-hop or Southside Jamaica Queens? The rise. Did you know? 50 Cent. Power didn't begin with fame, money, or strategy. It begins in a place where survival was the only real currency. Southside Jamaica Queens in the late 80s and early 90s wasn't a neighborhood, it was a pressure cooker. You heard the saying, Queens get the money. But it's not just a saying, it's a survival instinct. It is a lifestyle. A place where every decision had consequences and every mistake had a price. 50 Cent was born Curtis James Jackson III on July 6, 1975, to Sabrina Jackson and was raised by his grandparents Beulah and Curtis Jackson Sr. in Southside Jamaica Queens, in New York. His mother was deep in the streets and unfortunately lost her life. His father has been absent for the entirety of his life. He grew up watching people rise fast, fall faster, and disappear without warning. In that world, you didn't just learn how to survive. You learned how to read people, how to sense danger, and how to understand power long before you ever had any. Sabrina was smart, respected, and feared. But when 50 Cent was 8 years old when he lost his mother, that moment didn't just change his life, it rewired him. Losing the person who protected him forced him to build a new kind of armor. Not physical armor, psychological armor. The kind that teaches you to never show weakness, never trust too easily, and never let anyone control your narrative. Growing up, he watched the older hustlers run the blocks like CEOs. They weren't just selling products. They were managing supply chains, negotiating territory, building alliances, and controlling attention. The streets were a business school with no textbooks. And 50 Cent was a fast learner. He understood early that power wasn't just about muscle. It was about perception. If people believed you were strong, you were strong. If people believed you were dangerous, you were dangerous. And if people believed you were untouchable, they treated you like you were. That mindset followed him into music. When he started rapping, he didn't sound like anyone else. He didn't try to fit in. He didn't try to be liked. He told the truth, raw, unfiltered, and unapologetic. His early mixtapes weren't just songs. They were reports from the front lines. Stories of survival, betrayal, ambition, and strategy. And people felt it because it was real. He wasn't performing. He was documenting. But the moment that changed everything came in 1999 when he released How to Rob, a song where he jokingly described robbing every major artist in the industry. It was funny, disrespectful, and brilliant. And it did exactly what he intended. It made everyone talk about him. In one track, he positioned himself as the fearless outsider who didn't care about the rules. He wasn't trying to make friends. He was trying to make noise. And it worked. It got the attention of Jay-Z, and that was all it took. And the rest you can say is history. So, do you think this was the start of his beef with Jay-Z, or is it always strategic? But with attention came danger. In the following year, May 2000, he was harmed 9 times outside his grandparents' house. Most people would have disappeared after that. Most people would have quit. But 50 Cent didn't break. He rebuilt. The incident didn't weaken him, it amplified him. It turned him into a myth. As not many can survive such an incident. A man who couldn't be silenced. A man who understood that attention, even negative attention, could be turned into power. When he returned to music, he wasn't just 50 Cent, the rapper. He was 50 Cent, the symbol, the survivor, the strategist, the man who refused to give up. He refused to fold, and he refused to let anyone else write his story. His rise wasn't luck. It was the result of a lifetime of learning how to turn pressure into fuel, pain into purpose, and chaos into opportunity. And in the words of 50 Cent himself, if you analyze him, what you will find is the DNA of a crook, and what goes on in his mind is contagious, hypnotic, it sounds melodic. If rap was the block or a spot, he'd be that potent product. Now get a load of him, flashy, far from low-key. And you can locate him wherever that dope be. Getting money. And when it comes to getting money, and I am sure you are aware, comes with challenges, which 50 Cent, He faced many challenges. Let's think of some. Did you know some of them? We just went over just a few, but what other challenges do you think he faced? The challenges. 50 Cent. Life wasn't shaped by one challenge, it was shaped by a series of escalating battles that forced him to evolve faster than everyone around him. His childhood was already a test of survival. Losing his mother at 8 years old meant he had to navigate Southside Jamaica, Queens without guidance, without protection, and without the luxury of innocence. His teen years pushed him deeper into the streets, where hustling wasn't a lifestyle, it was the only available economy. But even there, he moved differently. He studied people. He studied patterns. He learned discipline through boxing, becoming a Golden Gloves competitor, sharpening the timing, patience, and mental toughness that would later define his entire career. But the streets had politics. And in Southside, those politics were shaped by older crews like the Supreme Team, a group he never worked for, but one his mother was allegedly connected to. When 50 later mentioned Supreme McGriff and his nephew Gerald Prince Miller in the song Ghetto Quran, it created real tension. Not because he exposed secrets, but because he spoke honestly about an era many preferred to keep buried despite the information already been. And in a neighborhood where alliances mattered, he wasn't aligned with the older generation. He was on his own, with his own team, such as the earlier members of G-Unit, Tony Yayo, and Lloyd Banks. This was with people who knew when he had the nickname Boo Boo. Music became his escape route. Working with Jam Master Jay gave him structure and craft. His mixtapes built momentum. His Columbia Records deal should have been his breakthrough. But then came the incident outside his grandparents' home. No one was ever charged, and no motive was ever confirmed. But the aftermath was undeniable. He was blackballed. Irv Gotti openly admitted he tried to block 50 from the industry. Labels backed away. Radio wouldn't touch him. So, how do you think he navigated this challenge? And what would you have done if you were him? Most artists would have disappeared, but 50 Cent rebuilt from the ground up. He weaponized mixtapes. He built a street-level distribution network. He created demand the industry couldn't ignore. And then came the turning point. Eminem and Dr. Dre signed him, despite the warnings. And the irony? On the 20th anniversary of Get Rich or Die Trying, Irv Gotti passed away. You literally can't make this up. But success brought new challenges, managing G-Unit's rise and fall and rise again and fall again, navigating fame, building businesses, and expanding into TV and film. Every chapter demanded reinvention. Every win required strategy. And every setback forced him to evolve again and again. So the real question is, which challenge do you think shaped him the most? The streets, the industry, or the world he built afterwards? And what would you have done in each of his challenges he faced? The turning point. So, what do you think was the real turning point for 50 Cent? Well, let's find out. Because if you want to get rich and stay rich like 50 Cent, you have to see the patterns. With that said, for 50 Cent, that real turning point moment wasn't just one event, it was a realization of many. A shift in mindset. A point where he understood that the world he came from and the world he wanted to dominate required two different versions of him. The streets taught him survival. The industry demanded strategy. And the turning point came when he finally merged both. Do you remember when he released the book, The 50th Law with Robert Greene? This wasn't just another product he was selling. He truly lives by the 48 laws of power. But that's just one of the major turning points. No wonder after being blackballed, isolated, and written off, most people expected him to fade away. But instead, he treated the setback like a reset. He stopped waiting for the industry to accept him. He stopped trying to fit into a system that didn't want him. And he started building his own momentum. His mixtapes weren't just music, they were marketing. They were proof that he could create demand without radio, without labels, and without industry support. He turned the streets into his distribution network and toured with just the mixtapes. With the original members of G-Unit, Tony Yayo, Lloyd Banks, and DJ Who Kid, he controlled the market. He made the demand and supplied. That leverage arrived when Eminem heard his mixtapes. It wasn't luck. It wasn't timing. It was preparation meeting opportunity. Eminem saw what others feared, a voice with authenticity, hunger, and fearlessness. Dr. Dre saw the same thing. And together, they offered him something no one else had, a clean slate, a chance to rebuild on a global stage. signing with Shady/Aftermath wasn't just a record deal. It was validation. It was protection. It was the moment the industry could no longer ignore him. But the real turning point wasn't the deal. It was what he did with it. Get Rich or Die Tryin' wasn't just an album, it was a declaration. A statement that he wasn't just back, he was a force. The success was explosive. The momentum was unstoppable. And the irony that Irv Gotti passed away on the 20th anniversary of that album only added to the mythology surrounding 50's rise. Because that beef led to the downfall of Ja Rule and the rise of 50 Cent. And the beef didn't end there. From there, he expanded beyond music. G-Unit became a brand. His business ventures became case studies. His TV shows and films proved he wasn't just a rapper, he is a builder, a strategist, a mogul in motion. The turning point wasn't a single moment. It was the realization that he could control his narrative, shape his destiny, and outthink every obstacle placed in front of him. He was the hottest rapper out and took every advantage of it, doing deals unheard of like the sneaker deal with Reebok, selling vitamin water, and there is so much more. Another turning point was the song, How to Rob, because in hip-hop, competition from someone who is hungry waiting for their chance is normal. But what Fifth did was unheard of, dissing major names in the music industry. The song also landed him a slot on the original soundtrack for In Too Deep. Years later, 50 Cent would work with fellow Queens, Native, LL Cool J, and Omar Epps separately in hit TV show Raising Kanan. So now the question becomes, once you learn how to channel your challenges, it's what you do with your turning points. So to stay rich, you need to have strategies. What type of strategies do you think 50 Cent put in play? The strategy? Well, what 50 Cent did was very smart. Let's go all the way back. It starts with his name change from Boo Boo to 50 Cent, named after a Brooklyn, New York street hustler. Why this is a strategy is because this led to Jay-Z's response. I'm about $1, what the F, is a 50 Cent. Even 50 Cent has credited Jay-Z for his response, as this was a big moment. A change in hip-hop culture. Also, 50 Cent, as said, his name meaning, is a symbol for change. All he said about Jay-Z and How to Rob was, what Jigga just sold, like 4 milli. / he got something to live for. Don't want to bleep putting 4 through that Bentley coupe door. Jay-Z was one of the few artists to offer a direct lyrical rebuttal. He responded later that year at Summer Jam 1999, and on the track, It's Hot, Some Like It Hot, from his album Volume 3, Life and Times of S. Carter. His full response, however, was, go against Jigga your ass is dense / I'm about $1. What the bleep is 50 cents? So it is clear it was strategic move. 50 Cent has admitted the song was a calculated marketing tactic to get people talking about him when he had a limited budget. Despite the public beef, 50 Cent and Jay-Z reportedly spoke backstage at Summer Jam, where Jay-Z told him he actually liked the song, though he still felt the need to respond for the sake of competition. The track is now considered a hip-hop classic for its audacity and served as the blueprint for other artists like Nicki Minaj, who interpolated it for Barbie Dreams, and J-Rock to create similar tracks. If you really want to understand how 50 Cent got rich and stays rich, you have to study the strategy behind his conflicts. Because for him, beef was never just drama, it was marketing, positioning, and psychological warfare. Every feud, every joke, every troll had a purpose. And the pattern becomes clear once you look closely. Even the Ja Rule beef is strategic, yet very personal. He still trolls him till this day. That wasn't just a rap beef, it was a full-scale takeover. 50 exposes weaknesses, controls the narrative, and flips the entire industry's perception. The fallout reshaped hip-hop, especially in New York. Then came D-Block, aka The Lox. Then came Dipset. After Cameron called into Angie Martinez's show screaming, Curtis, how much did the mob sell? This wasn't just entertainment, it was a moment that showed how 50 could turn an insult into a brand. He named an entire album Curtis because of that moment. He turned mockery into marketing. What the album was called before the change was, Before I Self-Destruct, then SS Gay. What Fifth did was position himself to make Cameron diss work in his favor. Then came the rapper Rick Ross, a pivotal moment. Their feud escalated into lawsuit, interviews, and public battles. When rapper Rick Ross's child's mother won a judgment against 50, he didn't panic. He He filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy not because he was broke, but because he understood the law. It was a strategic move to protect his assets, restructure obligations, and control the financial narrative. Most people react emotionally. 50 reacts strategically, even trolling online with a picture of him posting broke spelled out in cash. Speaking of baby mothers, the situation unfolded as follows. For years, 50 Cent was reportedly giving Shaniqua Tompkins $40,000 per month, approximately $500,000 annually, in voluntary child support for their son, Marquise Jackson. Shaniqua Tompkins eventually took the matter to the family court, seeking a formal increase to the monthly amount. Upon reviewing the actual financial needs and legal guidelines, the judge determined that the voluntary payments were far above the required amount. Instead of granting an increase, the judge slashed the payments to roughly $6,700 per month, $81,000 annually. The court reportedly noted that child support is based on the child's actual needs rather than the parent's total wealth, and that Shaniqua Tompkins had the ability to work. Then came Diddy. Firstly, the 50 Cent versus Diddy rivalry evolved from professional collaboration in the early 2000s, including 50 Cent ghostwriting for Diddy, into a multi-decade feud ignited by a 2006 dispute over rapper Maze's contract and 50 Cent's subsequent diss track, The Bomb, which explicitly accused Diddy of knowing who had something to do with the demise the Notorious B.I.G. allegedly. This animosity deepened through the 2010s as they competed in the spirits industry with rival vodka brands, Effin and Ciroc, and 50 Cent, increasingly used social media to troll Diddy over personal discomfort and legal rumors. The timeline reached its peak in late 2024 and 2025 following Diddy's arrest and federal conviction on charges of transportation to engage in illegal acts, culminating in the December 2025 release of the 50 Cent-produced Netflix docuseries Sean Combs' The Reckoning, which serves as the ultimate "I told you so" regarding the long-standing feud that 50 Cent had championed for years. But that's not all. There were two hidden verses in plain sight that 50 Cent wrote for Diddy. The two verses 50 Cent famously claims to have written or co-written with Jay-Z for Diddy are from the I Get Money, Forbes 1, 2, 3 remix, and G-Dep's song, Let's Get It. In recent years, especially following Diddy's 2024 and 2025 legal troubles, 50 Cent has joked that these lyrics were essentially confessions he handed to Diddy to rap. For example, 1. The acquittal verse in the song, I Get Money, Forbes 1, 2, 3 remix, in 2007. The confession lyrics are, Bo knows but Diddy did it. Cars, jewelry, and big homes. Yeah, Diddy did it. Shootouts, coastal beefs. Yeah, Diddy did it. But my lawyer's so good that Diddy got acquitted. 50 Cent highlighted that these lines referenced the very things Diddy was often rumored to be involved in: the club incident, street violence, and the East Coast versus West Coast feud, effectively making Diddy confess to them on a hit record while bragging about his legal immunity. 2. The prophetic verse. Song, Let's Get It by G-Dep, Foot Diddy, and Black Rob in 2001. This was written when 50 Cent was still a hungry ghostwriter for Bad Boy Records. Getting to the bag, it was just business. 50 Cent wrote the hook and Diddy's verse, which is now eerie in hindsight given Diddy's federal indictment in late 2024. The confession lyrics are, I'm the king of the city, they call me P. Diddy. Tell the DA and the feds to come get me. 50 Cent has suggested that he wasn't just writing hits, but forecasting the legal downfall of his rival decades before it happened. Whilst getting paid, do you remember us mentioning the books, the 50th Law, and the 48 Laws of Power? What laws do you think he applied for this strategy? Another strategy used was, This is 50. It became a digital battlefield. Pimpin' Curly became a character that mocked, entertained, and promoted all at once. He wasn't just beefing, he was building an ecosystem, a platform, a media machine. And when social media evolved, so did he. Instagram became his new arena. The trolling became sharper, funnier, and more strategic. Even when he joked about Rotimi owing him money, it boosted Rotimi's album sales. That's leverage disguised as comedy. And it didn't stop with rappers. He trolled other actors from Power and BMF. He trolled comedians like Cat Williams and Marlon Wayans. He trolled athletes like Clarissa Shields. He trolled Jim Jones while doing business with Cameron. He even still trolls Jay-Z. But here's the real strategy. Every troll promotes something. Whether it be his cognac, his champagne, his TV shows, his movies, his tours, his documentaries, his books, his music, his merchandise. No matter what he is selling, there is one thing he understands. And by now, you should understand, and that is attention is currency. And 50 Cent utilizes it with precision. So with all that said, let me know, what do you think this really all means? Not just for 50 Cent, but for you. What it means for you is very simple. To get rich and to stay rich. There are vital lessons you can learn. So what are the lessons? Lesson 1. Behind 50 Cent's success, he knows and understands people. Because at the core of everything he does, the deals, the trolling, the conflicts, and the reinventions are a deep understanding of human behavior. He knows what people fear, what they desire, what they respond to, and what they can't ignore. Most people react. He studies. Most people take things personally. He takes things strategically. That's why he wins. Lesson 2. Power dynamics are another layer. 50 Cent learned early that power isn't about being the strongest. It's about being the most adaptable. It's about controlling the narrative, controlling your emotions, and controlling your environment. When he trolls, he's not just being petty. He's shifting the power dynamic. He's forcing people to respond to him, not the other way around. He dictates the tempo. He decides the frame. And once you control the frame, you control the outcome. Lesson 3. Then there's money. 50 Cent doesn't chase money. He strategically positions himself. As money follows positioning, he understands that wealth is built through leverage, ownership, and timing. That's why he took equity instead of cash. That's why he diversified early. That's why he treats every opportunity like a seed, not a paycheck. Most people think in moments. He thinks in moves. Lesson 4. Decision-making is another insight. 50 Cent makes decisions quickly, but not emotionally. He removes fear from the equation. He removes ego. He removes hesitation. He focuses on information, timing, and advantage. That's why he can pivot faster than his competitors. That's why he can turn losses into leverage. That's why he can walk away from anything that doesn't serve him. Identity is yet another lesson. 50 Cent didn't just build a brand, he built a character, a persona, a psychological shield. And that identity gives him freedom. It gives him protection. It gives him power. Because once you decide who you are, the world has to adjust. And a bonus lesson, money management skills. He learned his money management skills from the days of hustling on the street. He may not have been a big-time drug dealer, but learning how to manage with what you got and make more money is a skill. It's an active skill you learn, because even in losses, you learn how to make that money back and learn how to keep that money, just like 50 Cent. When you look at 50 Cent's life from the outside, it's easy to focus on the wins, the albums, the money, the shows, the businesses, the trolling, and the headlines. But underneath all of that is something people rarely talk about, and that is the emotional cost of becoming who he is. Because none of this came without pain. None of this came without sacrifice. None of this came without moments that could have broken him completely. You may think he is cold and calculated, but maybe with everything he has been through, led him down this path. Think about it. He lost his mother before he even understood what loss meant. He grew up in an environment where trust was dangerous, loyalty was fragile, and survival was never guaranteed. He was betrayed, blackballed, had a near-fatal incident, dismissed, underestimated, and left to rebuild from nothing. Most people would have folded. Most people would have disappeared. But he didn't. He turned every wound into wisdom, every setback into strategy, every scar. He turned into a reminder that he was still here. And that's the emotional core of his story. He refused to be gone physically, mentally, or spiritually. He refused to let the world decide who he was. He refused to let pain define him. He refused to let fear control him. This is why when you understand getting money is one thing, but maintenance of money is a whole different ballgame. Tony Yeo has confirmed 50 Cent has a lawyer for everything. That's another strategy, because when you get to his level of money, some people will do anything to try and take it from you, even through business dealings. Do you remember, "I want my money by Monday"? The "money by Monday" phrase exploded into a viral meme in April 2019 during a high-stakes social media feud between 50 Cent and movie producer Randall Emmett. After 50 Cent called out Emmett for an unpaid $1 million loan from 6 years prior, he began relentlessly trolling him and his then-fiancée, Lala Kent, on Instagram, famously demanding the full balance with the ultimatum, "I want the rest of my money Monday." The drama, dubbed Foftygate, after Emmett accidentally misspelled 50's name as Fofty, while begging for mercy, ended when Emmett wired the final payment on that Monday, cementing the phrase as a cultural shorthand for 50 Cent, ruthless debt collection tactics. Fast forward years later, Fif helped the landlord of where Jim Jones and Mayno filmed their podcast. He got them to pay what was owed. Knowing Fif, you can bet he probably now owns part of the real estate. In the same way, he brought the front row seats to a Ja Rule concert. There's irony in his journey too. The people who tried to stop him only made him stronger and richer. The industry that tried to shut him out ended up needing him. The rivals who mocked him became footnotes in his story. Even the trolling, the jokes, the memes, the characters, they're not just entertainment. They're armor. They're a way of taking control of the narrative before anyone else can. They're a reminder that he survived things far worse than criticism. And then there's the triumph. Not the loud kind, not the flashy kind. The quiet triumph of a man who built himself from the ground up. The triumph of someone who turned trauma into discipline. The triumph of someone who learned how to turn chaos into opportunity. The triumph of someone who realized that the world doesn't reward the strongest, it rewards the most resilient. From the way he used his own story, his own life, he turned it into a brand. Even being one of the first rappers with a video game. 50 Cent has starred in 2 primary video games. 50 Cent, Bulletproof, in 2005, and its sequel 50 Cent, Blood on the Sand, in 2009. The first game, Bulletproof, follows a fictionalized version of his life where he seeks vengeance against hitmen, while Blood on the Sand features him and G-Unit fighting through a war zone to retrieve a stolen diamond-encrusted skull. Both titles are third-person gameplay that heavily lean into his street persona, featuring music, voice acting, and even appearances from Dr. Dre and Eminem. This is not just entertainment. This is business. Monetizing your brand, your image, your pain, your truth. Trolling is conflict, but that's part of hip-hop culture. Not necessarily trolling, but the competitive nature. Even if it's not battling on the mic. You have 50 Cent battling Jay-Z in the boardroom. However, Jay-Z is far ahead, but with the way Fif is going, don't be surprised if he gets back to being #1 on Forbes and a billionaire soon. So before you judge his methods, his trolling, his confidence, or his animal ambition, his untamed desire to win, remember this. Everything he does comes from everything he survived, and everything that he has been through. So, with this brief quick recap, what lessons will you now learn from 50 Cent to get rich and stay rich? The principle. What does this all mean for you? Was this really a secret? Most importantly, how can you apply what you learned? Well, think about it. You have already made it this far, so you already know the truth. 50 Cent doesn't troll for attention. He trolls for positioning. He trolls for leverage. He trolls for control. And that's one of the main principles most people misunderstand. They see the jokes, the memes, the Instagram posts, the characters, the chaos, and the hate, but they don't see the strategy underneath it. They don't see the system. They don't see the psychology. They don't see the business model. If you notice closely, Fif never starts it. Maybe How to Rob was the starter, but aside from that, he rarely starts it. Even the rapper Rick Ross tries to exploit 50 Cent trolling tactics to also gain attention for whatever ventures he is doing, and it doesn't work. Do you know why it does not work? It's too obvious. He wants attention and is using his beef with 50 Cent to sell something. However, with 50 Cent, does trolling to the point it's like his Instagram page is a main news source. The subtle marketing is there, under the captions and sometimes within the posts. Even when he trolls without it, he trends. You can't pay for the attention he gets. So do you think this is the real secret behind how 50 Cent trolls to stay rich? He understands that attention is the most valuable currency in the modern world, and he controls it on demand. Most people chase attention. 50 Cent manufactures it. Most people react to narratives. 50 Cent creates them. Most people fear conflict. 50 Cent monetizes it strategically. His trolling isn't random. It's not emotional. It's not impulsive. It's a tool, a weapon. a marketing engine, a distribution system, a spotlight he can turn on and off whenever he wants. And every time he trolls, something happens in the background. His product moves. His movies and TV shows trends. His music trends. His brand grows. His business deals closes. A narrative shifts. His competitors lose balance. That's another key principle. He uses conflict to create conversation and conversation to create capital. Trolling is not the strategy. Trolling is the amplifier. The real strategy is identity. 50 Cent built a persona that gives him permission to do what others can't. He built a character that can say what others won't. He built a brand that thrives in chaos instead of collapsing under it. And that's why he stays rich. Because when you build an identity strong enough, consistent enough, and authentic enough, the world adjusts to you, not the other way around. So what does this mean for you? It means you don't need to troll like 50 Cent. You don't need to beef like 50 Cent. You don't need to provoke like 50 Cent. But you do need to understand the principle. In a world full of noise, the person who controls attention controls opportunity. The person who controls narrative controls perception. And the person who controls identity controls their future. That's the real secret. That's the real blueprint. That's how 50 Cent trolls to stay rich. Now, how will you get rich and stay rich?